ఇది వస్తూ ఉంది.
వాళ్ళ కాలేజీలో ఉన్నాయి థాయిలాండ్ వాళ్ళు నేర్పిస్తారు కానీ ప్రొఫెసర్ మ్యాథ్స్ వాళ్ళు కొనడానికి అందరికీ నేర్పించినట్టు సార్ ప్రాజెక్ట్ ఎవరు ఉంటే వాళ్ళు తీసుకుని చేసుకోవడం అని బాగుంటుంది సార్.
బాగుంటుంది. Dr. Murali Krishna, shall we start? Yeah. Good morning, everyone. Welcome. The fourth day of FDP on GIS and remote sensing. Today, first session, we have a wonderful lecture. The topic of this session is geospatial technology for natural resources management. So it will be delivered by Dr. G. Murali Krishna, Head GIS and Remote Sensing Lab, ICRISAT, Hyderabad. Just let me introduce Dr. G. Murali Krishna to you. It is a very privileged honor to me to introduce my good friend, Dr. G. Murali Krishna. Dr. G. Murali Krishna Gumma has over 20 years of demonstrated skills and international experience working as a natural resources scientist and geospatial sciences. His work experience spans over 35 countries spread across Asia and Africa. Currently, he is working as head remote sensing GIS lab, senior scientist, geospatial science at International Crop Research Institute for Semi-Arid Tropics, ICRISAT, Hyderabad. He leads geospatial research in collaboration with multidisciplinary teams such as biological, social scientists, and modelers, providing the geospatial data inputs to crop modeling, prioritization, decision making, technology dissemination, and impact assessment. Previously, he has worked as a remote sensing and GIS scientist at the International Rice Research Institute, Laos, Philippines. Before that, he has a postdoctoral fellow at IRRI, Laos, Philippines. Earlier to this, he worked for 7 years as a remote sensing and GIS specialist with International Water Management Institute based in Sri Lanka and in India. He has a PhD and master degree in remote sensing application to water resources, cropland and land cover, including forest issues, so working across many countries of South Asia, Africa, and Southeast Asia. In addition, he also has a bachelor degree in civil engineering. So far, he has authored more than 120 international peer-reviewed scientific publications, one academic textbook, and book chapters in 5 books. For the last 16 years, is working on a wide range of natural resources, water, and agriculture issues within the CGIAR system. His current research interest including global level crop mapping, land remote sensing, identifying the best sites in inland valley, wetland rice cultivation in Africa, land use land cover change, cropping intensity, climate change, and ecology of infectious diseases. There are many things to tell about Dr. G. Murali Krishna. So I will stop here because he's waiting since 10 o'clock. I now request Dr. J. Murali Krishna to take over the session and start his presentation. Dr. Murali Krishna, you can continue your presentation, sir.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Srinivas. It is really, I'm very happy to give a seminar on geospatial technology for natural resource management. Yeah, first of all, I'll give a little bit background about our activities and how it will be helpful for agriculture development. And mainly, we are working on South Asia and Africa. We are monitoring croplands by using various satellite imagery and secondary information. Of course, this data will be used in agriculture development and also improving natural resource management. And given that background, today's presentation mainly I'll talk about a geospatial product and contribution to the agriculture research. And what are the major products we are generating and how it will linking to the agriculture development, which will give a first of all, third one, and availability of the satellite imagery. And there are plenty of satellite data sets are available, but some are open source and some are very expensive data sets. But this is all we will discuss together. And also, while going my presentation, you can stop anywhere and you can ask and you can clarify your more detailed information or clarifications as well. And after that, I'll touch upon irrigated versus rain-fed cropland by using machine learning algorithms. And finally, I will talk about crop type mapping using Google machine learning algorithms. And finally, these are the major products we are generating by using various satellite imagery and machine learning algorithms and semi-automated techniques. Of course, these are the products we are generating, but how it will be useful, that will be coming in decision making. For decision making, one is site suitability mapping, watershed prioritization, including groundwater potential zones, improving crop water productivity, and tracking NRM technologies. This is all technologies where our geospatial products mainly used for agriculture development for decision making. And finally, we will touch upon gaps and limitations. Of course, we are doing all this research, but there are some limitations and some uncertainty also there. which we will discuss finally. And my presentation, it will come around 45 minutes to 1 hour. But later on, we will discuss about further, comments or any questions from you. And here is the, first of all, I'll explain about the geospatial products. What are the geospatial products we are generating by using satellite imagery? And first of all, we are preparing major crop type mapping, which is a primary, a very essential input for breeders, crop modelers, even natural resource managers, and also planning departments. First of all, they want to understand which crop and where it is grown, and that is the first step. And after that, they will come into the problems and various other, length of growing periods. All this information linking to first the crop extent maps. And second one is irrigated versus rain-fed croplands, which is also very important. The most of the area, in especially for South Asia, there is no further expansion of land, but only, we can expand, we can extend within the area, we can improve crop intensity. That's the reason where irrigation sources are there, where non-irrigated area is there. And based on that, we can prioritize our crops also. For that purpose, irrigated versus rain-fed, it is very important, including source-wise, tank irrigation, canal irrigation, rain-fed supplemental irrigation. This is all we monitor through remote sensing data. And third product is length of growing period. You all know length of growing period means the crop season, when starting, when is the peak, and when is the harvesting time. This is very important to disseminate different varieties of crops, and suitability mapping, and even crop modeling also. This is very important input for assessing agricultural, prioritizing the areas. And our fourth product is crop stress maps, which is including drought, submergence, and heat stress. And for example, even ICRISAT or any agriculture agency, they are producing lot of lot of varieties they are inventing. And where exactly, drought tolerant or submergence tolerant, where exactly it is, we can disseminate. These maps are very, and apart from these, even insurancing, Pradhan Mantri Fasal Bima Yojana project, and they are implementing and they are disseminating where drought or submergence is occurring. They are doing insurancing as well. For that purpose also, these products are very helpful, apart from breeders and social scientists also. And other product, and next product is land use, land cover changes. We are doing urban expansion, impacts of wastewater irrigation, and also even crop wise over the years, how the cropland is changing one crop to another crop based on demand and water availability. This is all analysis can be done with these maps, land use, land cover changes. And final product is cropping intensities. As I mentioned earlier, even irrigated versus rain-fed cropland, the cropping intensity is very important, especially for Asia and Africa also. It is very important. For Asia case, as I mentioned, there is no further expansion of cropland area, but only possibility is we can intensify crop. Where there is single crop is grown, we can see the opportunities how we can grow double crop area. And similar way, double crop area, we can see opportunities for triple crop area with the short duration legumes. These are the major products we are generating by using satellite imagery with the help of ground information. Okay, now, yes.
Yeah, can we ask? I think we can interrupt at any time. Murli, Dr. Murli, is it okay?
Please. Yeah, it is fine, because this is just like a discussion. I'm very happy to do that one.
Yeah, I request all participants, please use this wonderful opportunity. He has very vast international experience, and you can ask him, especially students who are doing a PhD and master, and young faculty. If you can ask any questions at any time. So I have one question for you, Murli, Dr. Murli. You said that you have one product that is irrigating cropland, and okay, mapping for tanks, canals, rain-fed, and have you prepared this, water spread command area for all reservoirs for entire country or any specific?
Yes, we did for entire India, entire South Asia,
Okay.
and which is I think already it is published even on peer-reviewed journal as well. And also this data, whatever we are producing, the data sets which is for open access, anybody can download and they can use for their own purposes.
Where we can find these data, Murli?
Yes. Finally, I'll share with you this presentation as well along with the links, and you can download and you can use for your purposes.
Thank you, Dr. Murli.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Any other questions up to now? Okay, I'll continue now. Yes, those are the major products and where it will be used. For example, here is the the 5 examples. Of course, there are many examples are there, but I want to emphasize on these 5 examples. One is water productivity, improving crop water productivity. Especially this is for command area and non-command areas as well. Here I am illustrating one of the pilot study, Kadam Reservoir, and where there is where they have periodic crop stress was there because lack of water, especially in summer season. So we are doing analysis for 15 years data. Here we generated a baseline scenario and improved scenario. If improved scenario means we have to save the water, at the same time we have to doubling the crop yield at the equivalent to the money. That is the hypothesis here. For that, we are doing water productivity mapping for entire this basin based on present scenario and future scenario. But the both we compared, and we included our Pradhan Mantri website. They mentioned minimum support price. With that support price, in the small command area, we can increase 40% of water savings. At the same time, 70% of equivalent money farmers will get benefit. This is all we have done analysis at a small scale, but this can be done for larger scale as well. This is the one. And second one is spatial modeling for prioritization. Prioritization means, you all know, prioritization means we have a large area, but where we can focus for the agriculture development, even natural resource development. For that one, we are integrating biophysical parameters, socio-economic parameters, and eco-environmental parameters. Of course, in South Asia, not the South Asia case, but Africa case, which is very important. So we are integrating all these parameters, biophysical parameters, for example, length of growing period, soils, land use, land cover, even rainfall, temperature, all these will come into the biophysical parameters. Socio-economic parameters, accessibility of roads, accessibility of settlements, road network, and markets. This is all coming under socio-economic aspects. These all parameters we are developing as a thematic maps, and we all together we are integrating together by using multi-criteria approach and simple algebraic algorithm, and we are categorizing into the 1 to 5 categories: high priority and low priority. First priority means which is very convenient, very comfortable for agriculture development, which is a very good soil, which has lands have good soils and close to the cities and close to the road network, and those are the high priority. And low priority, which is the rocky area and no accessibility, all these areas are low priority. And third one is similar yield estimation. For example, there are so many yield gaps are there. For example, we have a big command areas, large command areas across India, but the yield gap is varying very high. 2 hectares to 2 tons to 5 tons, and sometimes 8 tons also it is varying rice yield. And similar way, where the gaps are there, where the low yield, and those areas we have to identify in spatially by using crop extent maps and other biophysical parameters we are integrating here. Yeah, here you can see the crop, low yield to high yield, where it is the low yield areas, we can recommend new varieties and also new management practice we can disseminate. For that purpose, all geospatial products are very helpful. And another product is byproduct is tracking NRM technologies, natural resource management technologies. For example, ICRISAT, we are disseminating so many technologies at watershed level. And we are also assessing by using remote sensing data over the year, how many water harvesting structures has been constructed and how much area is increased. In crop also, it is how much improvement was happened. This is all monitored through remote sensing data and along with the secondary information. And finally, impact assessment. We are disseminating different varieties in terms of yield, in terms of production. Sorry.
Sir, good morning, sir.
Yeah, good morning.
Sir, any mapping is done for the crop mapping under different reservoirs across India?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We have done, sir. In the coming slides, it will clearly. I can show you. And we can discuss by that time. Yeah, these are products. And for other one, this is final one, impact assessment. We are disseminating different varieties, but different parts of India. For example, in AP, this is like example like a chickpea. Initially in Andhra Pradesh, there was a very limited area was chickpea was grown, especially in Kurnool and Anantapuram. How it is expanded in terms of area, the violet area you can see here. This is also can be done by using remote sensing analysis. Okay. Okay, these are the up to now you have seen the major products from the remote sensing imagery and the major where it will be used in agriculture development. I have explained up to now, and now I'll give you details about how monitoring croplands using machine learning algorithms and what are the satellite imagery is available and what are the algorithms are available and where it will be useful. This is all I will explain in this section. Can I continue?
Yeah, Dr. Murali, you can continue.
Yeah, some noise is coming. Maybe
some.
The availability of the satellite imagery, and here you can see there are, as I mentioned, there are hundreds of satellite data sets are available, but mainly we are using Sentinel-1 and 2, Landsat, MODIS, and some weather parameters, atmospheric parameters, data sets, and also some existing global land use, land cover information also sometimes for the validation purposes. Mainly, we are using Sentinel-1 and 2. Sentinel-1, which is 20 meter spatial resolution, and Sentinel-2, which is 10 meter spatial resolution, which can be, we can do at a plot level, even within 1 acre, less than an acre also, we can monitor the crop as well for that one. And also, which is open source data sets, which will be available for every 6 days. Every 6 days data sets are also available.
Single item ga ichchamu.
Yeah, and mainly Sentinel-1 and 2, Sentinel-1, which will be available for every 12 days interval, and Sentinel-2, which is available for every 6 days. Okay, and another one, Landsat data, which is available from 1970s to till date, every 16 days data sets are available at 30 meters spatial resolution. And MODIS, as you all know, there are 36 bands are there, and mainly we are using land resource, mainly land use land cover classification. We are using 7 band data for our purposes. And terrain information, SRTM 90 meters, SRTM 30 meters, and now GTOPO at 1 kilometer data, and also of course NRS is available at 1 meter resolution data also available, which is a bit expensive. And these all data sets we are using for what I explained in the previously, various purposes and depend on purpose. And for example, it is district wise, we will go for a very high resolution. For example, it is continent wise, we go for Landsat, either MODIS also for monitoring croplands. And these are the main data sets and how it will be used. This is the interface of Google Earth Engine machine learning algorithm. Of course, there are number of machine learning algorithms are there and number of interfaces are there. But mainly we are using Google Earth Engine because which is free of cost, and also all satellite imagery, nearly the hundreds of satellite data which is available in Google Earth Engine. Those data, of course, it is available for daily data. Of course, even 6 days and every 12 days data, it is available for entire globe. And mainly we are using supervised classification, random forest classifier, and also training samples, which is very important, very key for our satellite image analysis training data. And most of the training data we have collected, ICRISAT and other CG centers have been collected, and that data as the input, and the nearly 70% of data we used for training data. Training data means we are giving based on this information, our classification, our classified output will come in that one. That is the training data. And validation data, 30% of validation data. After the classification results, we are just comparing with our classified map, and finally we conclude this much accuracy like that way. And this is the protocol. And with the training data and the continuous satellite imagery, by using random forest classifier, we are doing classification, and visually we verified with the high resolution imagery, and finally we are doing accuracy assessment with additional training and other secondary information. Finally we are producing crop products. Okay, and here you can see there are several steps are involved in that one. And first of all, we are combining yearly data and time series data. We are taking all together, it is 13 bands, 2013 to 15 we combined together. Of course, there are cloud issues also there. To avoid that one, we are combining 2 years data and a clear cloud-free imagery we conducted here for our analysis. And overall 30 meters data cube, it has 31 bands at 30 meters data. And that is the primary data set, and this is also in ground data. As I mentioned earlier, we are conducting a lot of ground information across India, but some areas we are not able to visit, especially in Pakistan, Nepal, and other regions we are not able to go there. And for those regions, we are capturing information through high resolution Google Earth imagery. And wherever we have collected ground data and we are capturing so many other information along with the photographs. Here you can see the photograph along with the geotagged photographs. And also at the same time, we are using mobile applications, which is the iCrops, which is developed by ICRISAT, Android based mobile application. Here you can see interfaces, 5 interfaces, how it will be. There are data collection, we are collecting water source, crop type, land cover, and finally we are feeding like this each. And when we collect the data along the photographs and latitude, longitude, photograph, and all this information, crop type, water source, and land cover. Once we capture all this, we are capturing 2 to 3 photographs in different directions. This is all it is linking to our web portal. Directly this data set we are linking to our Google Earth Engine interface. With this training data and satellite imagery, our classification will be coming out. And along with the information also, here you can see each photograph, it has geotagged photograph, and the clear picture also you can see, and this will be used when we once we have completed the classification. We are comparing at a geographical location wise whether this crop is exactly picked out or not. This is all we are final validation purposes, it will be very useful. And you can see here our database, how it will feed. This is our web, our server. Here you can see the real time. It is coming with along with the photograph and all this information along with the latitude, longitude, and other information as well. It will be available either shapefile and also CSV format. It is available. directly we can use for our analysis purposes in Google Earth Engine, also semi-automated techniques. And as I mentioned, some of the areas we have been we visited and we have collected information, but some areas we may not go because of there is no road access, and also sometimes it is not possible to go there, and also sometimes it is very expensive. For those regions, we are just zoom in and extracting information through Google Earth high resolution imagery. And also irrigated area, non-irrigated area, we can discriminate by using high resolution imagery. And along with the canal network, we already have command area boundaries, Central Board of Irrigation and Power. We are getting irrigated area boundaries from them, and by using that one, we are clearly categorizing irrigated versus rain-fed cropland by using high resolution imagery. Yeah, as I mentioned, the ground info training data and machine learning algorithm and continuous satellite imagery, the final output is coming like this. Here is the irrigated area across South Asia. Here we used the sample size is 2,634 samples we used. Irrigated cropland is 1,099, and rain-fed sample size is 651, and non-crop area is 884. This is all together by using this information, and you can see this is all. You can access even code along with the ground information and satellite and this processed images also you can extract from this web link. LPTAG USGS you can download, and also we have contributed. This is recent publication. You can see much more information, detailed information, GUMMA ETAL 2020. And once we get this one, we have generated district-wise statistics and we compared with the national statistics, and there was a pretty good correlation. 82% correlation was there. Of course, there are so many outliers are there, but we are very confident along with the national statistics, and remote sensing data is much more appropriate and accurate. And now we are also looking at specific crop type mapping. Here, what I am showing here now, of course, this is an initial stage, but still we are going to improve this, specific crop type mapping that needs a lot of ground information. And now we are working with the national and international collaborators and our partners. And of course, here the previous map, the accuracy is more than 80%, but now it is only 67%, but specific crops. Here you can see the wheat, chickpea, mustard, and other crops, land use land cover. The most of the area, wheat, chickpea, mustard is covered almost 95% of area, which is more than 80% accuracy. But other crops which is not able to discriminate, those crops are very less percent of area, 2 to 3% of area. Other crops which is mixing with the different crops, we are not able to capture exactly. Those are very less because our overall accuracy is 66.6%. But if you see wheat, chickpea, and mustard, it will be more than 80% accuracy. That means 95% of area it is captured very well with a higher accuracy. And similar way we are doing cropping intensities. This is also purely developed by Google Earth Engine interface and by using machine learning algorithms. And single crop, double crop, and triple crop. This is the Krishna Basin, Krishna River Basin. You can see here single, double, and triple continuous crops. Of course, there are uncertainties there. If you see, this is the right side map, which is semi-automated techniques, which is more accurate compared to this one. But manual intervention is there, and which will take a little bit longer time than machine learning algorithms. And now you can ask, with 80%, with 70%, yeah, as I mentioned in the crop extent map, which is only 66% of accuracy. That accuracy map we may not use for different purposes and our crop modeling purposes and other analysis purposes. That's the reason we are using half of the portion, the majority of the portion will be done by machine learning algorithms, and only the critical part, analysis part, was done in semi-automated technique. That means 70% of work done in Google Earth Engine and 30% of work where manual intervention and expert intervention was there, that was done, semi-automated technique. I'm not going through more detail because which will take very longer. Anyway, I'm referring relevant publications to you. Whoever more interested on that, and you can go through and you can have one-to-one discussion as well. I'm happy to discuss further as well. Here, the major steps which is involved for any kind of purposes, the crop type mapping, we are using different indices, NDVI, LSWI. For time series data, every 15 days data we are using, and stacking season wise and applying unsupervised classification, and by using machine learning algorithms, spectral matching technique, decision tree algorithms and spectral matching technique. Finally, we are doing crop classification. There are some limitations also there, which we will discuss finally. And for specifically this one, semi-automated technique by using spectral matching technique. Here you can see various crops and precise locations we are generating ideal spectra signatures. This ideal spectra signatures we are applying for larger area, and a similar kind of signatures we are classifying into the specific crop types. Here you can see the entire South Asia, the major cropping pattern with including irrigation source wise. For example, the first class irrigated double crop rice wheat system, and similar way irrigated rice system, rice pulses. You can see all major crops you can see. For example, rain fed single crop rice fallows, which is eastern part of India, mainly Odisha, Chhattisgarh, Jharkhand, where you can see the mainly. But slowly, if you see in recently, even in AP and Telangana also, even Karnataka also, due to the lack of water, even irrigated command area also, they are switching to single crop rice and pulses. Earlier, there was a rice systems. Of course, this map is combined all together, but this is you may not see much detailed. It's crop wise. Now you can see the crop wise. Of course, here I'm not including, but similar way we are doing rice fallow areas as well. Here you can see rain-fed rice fallows, but here we mapped out from 2000 to up to 2019 and 20. The spatial distribution of rain-fed rice fallows and irrigation rice fallows, you can see entire South Asia. Of course, as I mentioned in the previously, the semi-automated techniques, Jhansi, Chitrakoot for district level. Here you can see the crop distribution, how it will be varying. Wheat, chickpea, mustard, and the combination of crops also you can see. Here our accuracy is more than 85% accuracy. Of course, the previous map you may not see the plot level information. If you see here the distribution of different crops in small area, you can see even side by side plots, different crops, even bunts also you can see clearly captured with the 10 meters spatial resolution. And we are overlaying block level information. Clearly, even block wise different crops, and of course homogeneous. Wheat is the homogeneous crop here in this particular area, but there are minor patches, the chickpea area also it is there. And not only we are doing this one, but we are also monitoring every 15 days crop stress due to the drought and due to the submergence. Entire India we are monitoring, and this information was mainly used for insurancing purpose. Reinsurance companies, they are using this product. At the same time, ministry also using this product. And this is another important thing, agriculture, insurance and reinsurance, mainly by using machine learning algorithms, field information and weather data. We are generating few products which are cropping pattern, length of growing period, water bodies, crop stress maps, and soil properties from the parameters, soil parameters. And finally, we are predicting yield and climate analysis. And this information we are feeding to the insurance companies at the capacitating farmer collectives for risk mitigation and resilient communities. and developing innovative meso level insurance products as well with this information. And finally, this will be helpful for the policy making and insurancing purposes as well. Mainly the 4 products we are generating from for insurance project here. Here are the land cover maps, phenology maps, crop stress maps, and crop type maps. Finally, okay, these are the products mainly generating from the remote sensing. Now, site suitable, integrating with as I mentioned previously, the 5 products. The key highlights I will highlight, and a little bit methodology also I will discuss. I will discuss here. This is just like a discussion part. Spatial modeling for selecting most suitable areas for inland valley rice cultivation. As you all know, Africa, there is a, entire Africa continent, it is a bigger, very bigger than India. And, the population wise, more or less, it is nearly, 1 billion population, which is less than Indian population. But geographical area is more, and natural resources also more. But they don't have idea where they can start agriculture, even specific crop wise. In this project, actually, they want to grow rice where they can grow rice. For that one, we are developing inland valley upland, and also we are, all valley bottoms may not suitable for rice cultivation, but some it is it is suitable for rice cultivation. For the how we have done, actually we have developed a model about that one. And here you can see, first of all, identifying the spatial layers, what I mentioned, biophysical, technical, socio-economic, eco-environmental factors. Nearly 29 parameters we identified, which are, for example, biophysical parameters, rainfall, evapotranspiration, length of growing period, surface water discharge, and stream water, slope. And there are so many biophysical parameters we consider here. But in this specific study, we used 10 parameters. That is the first step. And second step is each thematic layer we are giving weightages. That will be varying depend on crop. For example, rice. Rice needs more water, so we are giving wherever more water resources are there, we are giving high priority. And also not for submerged areas. Water will be available, but limited water will be available, which will be enough for cultivating rice. That we have given high priority. And wherever upland is there, wherever low water potential, we have given high priority. Like that way, the each thematic layer, high priority to low priority we have given. And we are giving score also. For example, some parameters are very important, which are we are giving score 1, 2, 3. 3 means very high priority and high importance. 3, and low importance we are giving low rating. Like that way, we are calculating each thematic layer, we are giving weightages, and finally we are building model. If you see in the left side corner in the lower bottom, this is the model, spatial model. We are integrating together and we are generating. For example, this is the slope elevation. We are giving a stream order. Wherever low order is there, fifth order means which is high water potential. Whatever we have given first order means that is the where there is a low water potential, we have given low priority. Like that way we are integrating, and finally we are running, and this all green area it is suitable and red area is highly suitable areas, you can see here. And of course, and also after interventions, we have validated with our ground information also, and which is 84% to 87%, it is more accurate, our model. And once we did for a smaller region and we integrated for the large area, this is for entire Ghana. Here we can see 11.4% of inland area is their total geographical area. But even less than 5% of area at that time up to 2010 they have been cultivated. But there is a lot of potential to expand rice cultivation in inland valley in Ghana. Of course, this will be available for entire Africa, which is lot of potential it will be there. This is just like a pilot we have done. And after that, the international water management was carried out for expanding this research for entire Africa. And of course, so we have, if you want more details, and we have contributed a couple of publications on this, and you can have a look more for more details also. And then second one, integrating remote sensing, GIS, GPS through spatial modeling for decision making. Here, actually, this is the groundwater potential zone. This is more or less similar. First of all, we are, I'm not going each and every detail. And similar way, biophysical parameters, and which is here you can see identified most critical spatial data layers which are influencing groundwater potential zones. That is the first step. And providing ratings and weightages for the spatial data layers based on literature and expert knowledge. We are giving the weightages, and finally we are running the model. We are integrating with the spatial model, and finally we are getting the results, which is giving poor groundwater potential zones, so high groundwater potential zones. You know, the previous methodology and here the methodology is similar, but the thematic layers are different. This is for groundwater potential zones, which are the layers are influencing groundwater. For example, geology, soils, geomorphology, drainage density, rainfall, and land use land cover. These are the only parameters we considered here. And here you can see the spatial layers also. This is also study was conducted for Ghana. The final resultant output you can see here, the groundwater potential zones. Once we get this map, we have a lot of information, ground information is there. We've overlaid, and you can see here clearly wherever very good and good groundwater potential zones is ours also is exactly picked out. You can see here clearly mapped. And this research also published in peer-reviewed journals, and you can have a quick look, and you can get more information about the analysis, how we have done analysis. You can see here. And improving crop water productivity. As I mentioned, Kadam watershed, we are not only doing for Kadam Kadam command area, but we are doing another parts of India also. What I mentioned here, we are doing analysis, temporal analysis from 2000 to till date. We have done analysis, and where there is key changes were occurred over the period, and those areas we are looking for opportunities for changing cropping pattern, which will be benefit to the farmers, at the same time which will be benefit to the water resources as well. And here you can see, here is the baseline scenario for Kharif season and Rabi season, improved scenario for the Kharif season and Rabi season. This is the existing pattern, and we are proposing this pattern. If we follow this one, 40% of water can save, at the same time 71% of rice equivalent yield can get gained. And here are the figures and the links also I shared with you, how we calculated this, and water use and prices. Actually, Narendra Modi's website we have downloaded, and these figures, and we have calculated this one. Yeah, thank you. And another product, geospatial data availability for the research. As I mentioned, all these product geospatial analysis, of course, I mentioned availability. Now, advanced methods are available, and also high resolution and temporal, very high temporal, spatio-temporal data is available for our monitoring croplands and monitoring natural resources, which are available for daily, weekly, and 16 days data is available for our purposes. As per our purposes, we can use different data sets, and science and the quality of data sets. And previously the data is available in DN numbers. There is no direct spectral reflectance, and we cannot do anything. There are a lot of process was there, but now in open source data sets, they are giving as a processed data, well calibrated data. We can download data, and directly we can use for our purposes. There is no radiometric geometry corrections are required right now. That means well calibrated data is available. And another one is historical data. Data is available from 1970s to till date. The data sets are available. We can see the long-term changes and short-term changes, and modeling purposes also, all these data sets can be useful. And advanced in methods, as I mentioned, apart from the machine learning algorithms, spectral matching techniques are there, decision tree algorithms are there, neural network algorithms are there, and of course a lot more is there, and we can use as per our purposes. And hardware and software, now Google Earth Engine along with the Google Earth Engine, Next, and open source software, that's software data also, software is also available for free use. And also hyperspectral data, which will be available from 2021 June onwards, which will be available for free of cost for entire globe. Of course, previously, which is available for Hyperion data. Already, I am closely working with USGS about this one. We are using hyperspectral data, and we are differentiating within the crop. Within the crop, also different varieties also we can differentiate. You know, traditionally, the data is available in different bands. For example, Landsat, band 2, band 3, band 4, band 8, like this way, one, whatever the vertical, you know, these lines are available. Hyperspectral data, if you see these curves, this is a continuous data is available. So if we have a data in near infrared and middle infrared, which is available, which is, 950 nanometers to 1150 nanometers, and those areas, you know, especially that bands are very sensitive for crop differentiation and different varieties differentiation also. So Hyperion data and hyperspectral data very much useful for crop differentiation and variety differentiation. And high resolution data, here you can see one of the example, the QuickBot data and Iconos data, 2.44 meters to very high resolution centimeters, few centimeters of data. You can see even small watersheds as well, water pumps as well. Of course, I already mentioned about this one. This is for Kadam watershed, and 25% of water we can save, and 52% rice equivalent yield can get gained. Yeah, as I mentioned, NRM technologies, I'm not repeating it again. From 1988 to till date, we monitored how many water harvesting structures were constructed here and how much area it is expanded. This is the small study area in Anantapuram district, one of the dry land area, and how much improvement was happened, we analyzed. If you see in 1988, there was a very less irrigated area and very low productivity, and now it is very high productivity. And you can see the crowd of water harvesting structures, and earlier there was no water harvesting structures set up. And also not only monitoring and over the period land use land cover changes, but we are using specific crop wise. This is for chickpea from 2000 to 2012 to 13, how much area it is expanded. You can see, you can monitor through satellite imagery. And this is how we crop identified. The crop chickpea identified, it is starting from October, November to, and harvesting in January and February. This is the unique nature. And also, we are also doing yield assessment. For that, we are using climate data, soil data, and management data from the ground. And we are including all this information feeding to the crop model. We are using two popular crop models, APSIM and TSAT model. And finally, we are getting yield prediction along with soil moisture and leaf area index. And soil moisture and leaf area index, actually we are extracting from satellite imager. That will be the proxy, and we are simulating. We are number of simulations we are running, whichever exactly fitting to our remote sensing. That we are concluding that is the yield for large. And similar way, the same crop models we are using. The yield, yield gaps were, this is the groundnut extent media. Yield gaps you can see less than 500 kg per hectare to more than 2000 hectare, 2000 hectares. And yeah, this is also published, accepted. And not only for groundnut, and we are also doing for rice and different crops, maize and maize, groundnut. And the overall, comparing with the observed yield with the predicted yield, there is not a very high accuracy. but is the acceptable accuracy, acceptable correlation we got from the ground original and modeled outputs. And there are gaps, as I mentioned, there are so many limitations are there. And we are using optical data so far, but optical data, if there is a cloud, you may not get the information. But to avoid that one, to overcome that one, we are using daily data as well, MODIS and other satellite images. And also at the same time, we are using synthetic aperture radar data, which will penetrate cloud, and we are improving our classified classification algorithms, and we are improving accuracy assessment as well. And Google Earth Engine, still so far we have generated mainly 3 products. One is crop extent, irrigated versus rain-fed, and cropping intensities. And now we are improving our algorithms for specific crop type mapping as well, which will come in this year. And we have the relevant publications, what I mentioned, what I presented today, that machine learning algorithms, and we have contributed various publications. And here you can see the list of publication, which will be the open source publications, and data also open source. You can use as for your purposes. And here is my team, and I'm closely associated with the USGS, Dr. Tankabel Prasad, who is my PhD advisor and guide. And here is our team. Thank you all. If you want more information, here is my mail ID. You can contact me at any time. And now we can discuss further as well. Yeah, thank you, Dr. Srinivas. If you have any questions.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Murali. It was a nice presentation, very informative. A lot of, I think, data you have given, information. I now request participants, please ask if you have any questions. You can unmute yourself and you can ask your question.
Sir, good morning, sir.
Yeah, good morning.
Sir, this is Jayasuma from Computer Science domain, sir, actually. Yes. So, you have been the quick access of this crop research methodologies. I'm able to grab something, but my question is, sir, what are the driving factors that influence the crop yield some areas? So you have done some lot of research regarding the some parameters. You have included few parameters. So what are the driving factors that can be included in additional to the whatever the research you have done, whatever the parameters you have done?
You mean yield assessment, madam?
Sir?
You mean yield assessment for crop yield assessment?
Not specifically for the crop yield assessment, sir. Actually, initially we should know, in order to do some research or some decision making or some classification or any prediction, first we need to know whether that land is cultivated land or not.
Yes, madam. Actually, this is simple. Madam, you all know, I think you might know. I will give a little bit tips about that. For example, we are doing unsupervised classification or supervised classification. Supervised classification means, suppose we want to do crop classification for entire India. We are taking samples from some known locations. That locations we are applying for entire India. So the similar kind of features, wherever the pixel wise it will analyze, the system will analyze, and it will segregate into the one class. Okay, for that purpose, we need training data is essential, very important. If our training data is very poor, our classified output also very poor.
Okay, sir. For example, if you want to take some particular area, a particular district, not only for India, particular district, due to the climatic conditions, whatever the training samples that are collected previous years may not be fit to the present scenario.
Yes, you are correct, madam.
If you want to collect it dynamically, if maybe we can consider as the training samples for the previous years up to 2019. I think I have seen some data sets that are available for the previous years, but whatever the scenario after 2019 is different from the scenario of before 2019. So if we want to collect that data dynamically, how quickly we can access that. Basing on the previous lectures, I am able to know that collection of the data can be done by remote sensing or something. But now, because I'm computer science domain, I can say that we can collect data from the drones or IoT devices or something else. Nowadays it became much easier to collect the data than the previous years. I mean, so can we switch to that point and collect the data for the predictive analytics? What I mean to say that for the predictive analytics.
Yeah, that is correct, madam. Actually, drones, I would say, I have done, madam, I have intensified, I have significant time spent on drones. I would say drones information, for example, madam, in a district, how much area you can travel through drones? How much area you can do in a day? How expensive it is?
Yeah.
Actually, for my views are, madam, collecting ground data by road, by manually, that is more authentic. Drone usage, drone, madam, everybody is using drone, but I am against to that one because I was used nearly 6 years. I was closely working on drones, but I concluded that there is no much utilization with drone data. Why? Because it is very limited area. If we travel, for example, madam, I traveled personally. I traveled nearly more than 20 countries. I traveled my personally with the students. I covered nearly 4 to 5,000 kilometers in a 8 days or 9 days time. But that much area we cover a lot of information. Even India also, whole India I covered in 37 days. But drone information which is very limited, which will be not very useful for our analysis. For specific region, one part, suppose if you are doing for small village or small, one mandal, of course it may be possible. But larger area, that may not be very helpful. Even for remote sensing, main motto is if we want to do for larger area, we can go for the remote sensing. If we want to do for village or mandal, that manually also we can very accurately. You understand my point, madam?
Yes, sir. I got it, sir. I got it.
Yeah, and now another question you were asking about dynamically it is changing. 2019 onwards, the scenario is changed. Yes, I agree with you.
Yes.
For example, rice, sugarcane, some crops like banana, these are standard areas they are growing continuously.
Yes.
However, dryland area, for example, wherever rain-fed crops are there, those areas dynamically it is changing because depend on demand, depend on market price, it will be varying. So that's the reason even our machine learning algorithms are also we stuck there because we don't have many ground data for all years.
Yeah.
That's the reason we are depending on semi-automated technique where I showed you spectral specific crop signatures for individual crops. Based on that we are doing. Yeah.
Sir, another question.
Yes, please.
So, ground level data, how because how a researcher student can collect the ground level data, sir? What are any other methods are there for a researcher research scholar to collect the data?
Yes, madam. This is actually, madam. Maybe I'll give another example on that. Purely, is it visible, madam? My
Yes,
slides?
yes, sir, yes, sir, yes, sir. Ground data collection. Yes, sir.
Yeah,
Mobile applications for ground data collection.
Yeah, please, madam, you can see here. These are the list of equipment we are using for a ground data collection. Hello.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I'm able to view it, sir. Visible.
Yes, madam. We are taking vehicle, madam, like that. Yeah, I was sitting here inside. You can see here.
Yeah.
Taking laptop, and we are feeding. We are loading all. Madam, tentative land use land cover map. Just 1 week before satellite imagery, we are uploading to the laptop.
Okay.
And we are linking that laptop to GPS, linking to laptop. So wherever we go, that road it will go. It takes us like this.
Okay.
Okay, and these all our equipment. Okay, like that way while going the road, and that map also clearly showing in the GPS vehicle tracking. Madam, simply vehicle tracking.
Yes, sir.
Through vehicle tracking and by using whatever we loaded in recent satellite imagery and land use land cover classification, we are capturing details, ground data. This will be, madam, for example, if we go without laptop, without this equipment in the field, we don't know where we are. And if we have all this equipment, we can go exactly and we can collect all this.
Sir, what software you are using for this analysis, sir? Like decision making, classification, and clustering?
Madam, earlier we used ERDAS Imagine, madam, earlier.
What's it?
But ERDAS.
Okay, sir.
ERDAS, but now we are using mostly Google Earth Engine. You see, madam, what I mentioned here. Yeah, each color it is representing 1 day. Each day we are capturing we are traveling nearly 300 to 400 kilometers, and we are capturing ground information. This is example for our entire Malawi. We have completed in 6 days for entire country.
Okay.
Of course, that is small country, but we traveled nearly 3,000 kilometers in 6 days. Okay. Okay, and each location you can see here clearly 500 meters by 500 meters. Of course, now it is 90 meters by 90 meters we are capturing. And all this information we are capturing like this way. 2 sets of ground data sets we are preparing. And of course, we have collected I was traveling in Bangladesh as well. Here you can see one is for ground data for class identification and labeling. And another set of ground data is for accuracy assessment.
Okay. Sir, can we develop a system dynamics for a particular region, sir?
Of course, development, it is possible because, for example, recently we are doing for few districts, continuously we are working.
Okay.
We are working closely with the MNCFC, Ministry of Agriculture. It is possible.
So for system dynamics.
Yes, madam, it is continuously for Kharif, Rabi, and continuous years, 3-4 years, we can standardize our algorithm also for that particular region. It is possible.
Okay. Now, recently, that machine learning algorithms are extended to deep learning algorithms, no, sir? Whatever the satellite images you have collected, that I think the deep learning algorithms can give much more accuracy rather than that machine learning algorithms.
Yeah, of course, madam. But madam, mainly I'm not a computer background, but of course but I know programming and coding. But yeah, we are working on only Google Earth Engine and some Python we are using.
So we can. My question is, can we encourage our students to work, extend whatever the existing algorithms that are there to extendable with your standard data set, what are there to the deep learning algorithm?
Yes, madam, it is possible, madam. And also, most of what I presented here and all codes and data sets are available in LPDAC. You can download and your students can work on that. Maybe they can test the same area, the same algorithm, and little bit modifications also it can be done.
Okay, sir. If we have any type of doubt, we'll contact you, sir. Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
And also you can have a look at our publications also.
Yes, sir.
Then you will get more information about our work.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello. Good morning, sir. Myself, Parthiban. I am MTech Geoinformatics student.
Sorry.
Hello, sir. Can you hear me, sir?
Yes.
Yeah, sir. I have 2 queries. Hello. Hello.
Yeah, please go ahead. I'm hearing.
Sir, as you said, like in Google Earth Engine, like we can able to distinguish different crops. For example, mustard, wheat, and chickpea. So, if you are taking some Sentinel-2 imagery, the resolution is 10 meters. Is it possible to differentiate these different crops? And if so, like how we can do that, sir?
Yes, this is what I explained to you. It is possible, we have differentiated based on, spectral profiles, start of season, peak of season, and, if you do simple unsupervised classification also, we can differentiate different crops.
Okay.
That's one. And also we have a training data by using machine learning algorithm.
Okay.
Okay, the similar kind of signature, similar kind of features for that pixel. The group of will get in one cluster. It will be in one class.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Partha. Hello.
Hello. Yes, sir. I can hear you.
Yes. Actually, please have a look our recent publication on whatever wheat, mustard, chickpea. That publication was published already.
Okay.
You can access some. I will share a link here.
Okay, sir.
Applications, so you can.
Sir, like so if wheat, chickpea, and we can do that. So suppose if you're like if you're taking some like coconut and mango, so is it able to differentiate the spectral signatures of these 2 things, and we can do classification for only for these plantation crops?
Yes, you can do that. You can do that any type of crops. Only thing is we need some ground information is required. Training data.
Okay. Okay, sir. Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
Hello.
Hello. Yeah, please.
Sir, my name is Prince Condor. Sir, I want to know what is spectral matching algorithms.
Spectral matching algorithm. We have some ground knowledge. For example, let us take. I will give a simple example. I know particular area where they are growing rice. Okay. That signature we are generating. That signature we are matching with the entire India, all pixel wise. So wherever exactly it is matching with that other particular area, which area is unknown, that the similar class we are assigning to that pixel as well. That is spectral matching technique. We are matching spectrally mean not only NDVI, LSWI, and other bands. Spectrally, we are matching known signature to unknown signature. That's the reason. That is the matching. Do you understand? You want more elaboration or you understand?
So please explain fuzzy technique also.
Right. I think Srinivasulu sir,
You
I
see,
think
for
there are
example,
few people
Yes, yes,
in
sir.
audience like
What
they
can I
have
do, sir?
opened.
I have requested
I
everyone.
think yeah, because maybe you are having some options to mute everyone
Yeah,
from your
Harsha.
end because you are the
Harsha. Yes,
yeah.
yes, sir. Yes, sir. Harsha, can you do that? Can you mute everybody?
yeah, I'll give a little bit elaboration of spectral matching technique. If you see here, for example, this is the known area. Here we have visited, and our point is like this. If this is this kind of signature in entire India, that will be the irrigate rain-fed single crop rice fallow area. This is unknown classes. We don't know about anything about these areas. But we are matching this signature with this one, and we are concluding this is all irrigated, rain-fed, single crop, rice in Kharif, fallow in Rabi, and fallow in summer. Like that way, this is all technique. It is the spectral matching technique. Okay. Another one, decision tree algorithm. What you asked about that. It has been used in decision rules. I will explain you. Also, you can go through some publications as well. But
Sir, is it similar to AHP method?
sorry.
Sir, is decision making algorithm similar to AHP method?
Yes. But this is slightly it is different. I will explain you. Maybe I don't have slide, but I have contributed a publication on this. Yes, yeah. You see, for example, here, this is the decision rule. Yeah, you can access this publication as well. If you see decision rule means this is one decision. Group K less than 0.5, greater than 0.5 from June to December, like this way. This is one group, this is one group. This is all through decision. We are grouping the classes. That is called decision tree algorithm. Okay, do you understand?
Yes, sir.
Did you see this one?
Also, please.
Yes, please.
Sir, also please explain fuzzy techniques.
Fuzzy techniques. Fuzzy
Yes,
techniques is very simple. Sometimes you are using spectral matching technique, you are using decision tree algorithm, you are using ground data. This PPT is available. This PPT, are you able to see?
Yes, sir.
Huh?
Yes,
here
sir.
it is Bangladesh. For example, here is the Bangladesh. One of the study site. Here you can see. First of all, the location-wise phenology you are checking. Then you are checking with the ground data. Finally, you are checking with the photograph also. But some classes you are not able to resolve. Those classes, fuzzy technique means you can use either flow, you can use either DEM, you can separate out and you can improve the classification. Okay. Classification. Yeah, any questions?
Nageshwar Rao, do you have any questions for Murali?
No, sir, certainly. No, from my end, actually.
So, yeah, it's a small announcement also. The next session was postponed to afternoon. It will be between 4 to 5 p.m. Okay. So instead of 11:45 a.m. to 1 p.m., this class was shifted to 4 to 5 p.m. because he has some urgent work. He could not unable to deliver his lecture. He has requested me, Dr. Fanindra from IIT Hyderabad. So sorry for the inconvenience. I request all participants, as usual, we have third session from 2:30 to 4 p.m. After that, this second session will be taken by him. Okay, I request all participants to again join at 2:30 to 5. We have two sessions from 2:30 to 5. Okay. Uh, so now we don't have any class after this. Okay. Dr. Murali, anything you want to share with the participants?
Yeah, nothing. If they want more details, more information, if they want any collaboration, I'm happy to support them, especially for students. Also, PhD students, I'm much encouraging, especially the machine learning algorithm.
Okay.
Who has interested, you can contact anytime.
Right.
Thanks, Dr. Srinivaslu, for giving me this great opportunity.
Thank you, Murali. So participants, we will close the today's session and we again rejoin for tomorrow for today at 2:30 p.m. Okay, we have two sessions from 2:30 p.m. to 5 o'clock. Okay, one will be taken by Professor Uma Maheshwar, Professor of Civil Engineering from NIT Warangal. And another is Dr. K. Pandindra from IIT Hyderabad. So, okay. Thank you.
Fine, sir. Thank you.
Thank
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Srinivaslu.
Thank you, Murali. Dr. Murali. Thank you very much. Okay.
ఎక్స్ప్రెస్ చేసుకున్నాం అనుకో మన బాధని. ఎవరైనా మనిషి అన్న తర్వాత కొంచెం జాగ్రత్తగా ఉంటుంది కదా, ఎవరికైనా అని ఉంటుంది. మనం ముందే భయపడిపోయి అది చేస్తాను లేదు అంటున్నాం. మనమే అనేసుకుని మనం దూరంగా ఉంటే ఎవరు చేస్తారు? ఎవరికి వస్తే ఆలోచన. ఇప్పుడు హేమావతి ఆఫీసర్ మనకి రివ్యూ అంటే మన ఫ్రీ షెడ్యూల్ ఎక్స్ప్రెషన్ ఇంటర్నల్ క్యాండిడేట్స్ అయింది ఉంటే అందుకనే కాదంటే ఒక విషయం మాత్రం నేను చెప్తాను, అది మాత్రం నేను ఆనందంగా చెప్తాను. ఏ పనైనా నేను తరలించుకున్నాను అనుకో, ఏదో విధంగా అది అయిపోతుంది.
మనస్ఫూర్తిగా మంచిగా జరగాలనుకుంటాను.
అది 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 మాత్రం నేను చెప్పగలను. ఏదైనా నేను తరలించుకుంటే మాత్రం అయిపోతుంది. అది గర్వంగా చెప్పట్లేదు, అది ఏదో
బయట గుంపులో మాట్లాడేసి
నాకు అది రాకే నేను కొన్ని ప్రాబ్లమ్స్ ఫేస్ చేస్తున్నాను కూడా. అది రాకే నేను దానికి నేను ఎందుకు చేయాలి అన్న ఫీలింగ్ నాకు లేకుండా ఉండే నేను కొన్ని ప్రాబ్లమ్స్ తెచ్చుకుంటున్నాను అనుకోవచ్చు. కానీ బట్ గాడ్ ఇస్ దేర్ కాబట్టి ఆ ప్రాబ్లమ్స్ అక్కడి నుంచి పోతున్నాయి.
మీరు చెప్పబట్టి నేను వెళ్ళాను. మెడికల్ గ్రౌండ్స్లో పెట్టు, డెఫినెట్గా అవుతుంది. రెగ్యులేటర్ పెట్టు, తర్వాత వీసీ గారిని కలగాను.
నాకు కూడా ఆలోచన ఒకసారి నా స్థాయిలో ఉంటే వచ్చింది, ఏంటి అమ్మాయి ఇలా ఉండిపోతుంది ఏంటి అని అలా వచ్చింది. చెప్ప